It was good YouTube. This is Who is Like God, and I actually got another reaction video in this one because we're going to be talking about how a teacher is actually on administrative leave because she's displaying a cross or a crucifix. I wanted to cover this story because it actually went viral. This is CBN network. It's probably one of the most famous, if not the most famous Christian broadcasting network in the country. I don't really watch it no more, but they obviously do have edifying content for believers and things of that nature. Here's the thing though, this occurred in my old stomping grounds. If y'all may or may not know, originally I'm from Connecticut. I moved to Florida a couple years ago. My mama is a proud teacher, and this actually happened in the same district that my mother used to teach at. She actually knows the woman, although not personally. So we're going to be looking at what happened and how the New Britain district is sort of handling religious imagery in classrooms, because this brings up the conversation of religion in classrooms and where we draw the line. So we're going to listen to our firsthand eyewitness testimony of what happened, and then I'm going to give my thoughts from, obviously a young biblical perspective to the best of my ability. So with all praises to the Most High God, I pray this will be edifying and I pray this will glorify Him. And yeah, let's peep game.
Marisol, thanks so much for joining us. I want to start by just...
fair use is for the purpose of education and social commentary and things of that nature. All right, all credit to CBN who made this, all right? I ain't taking no credit for none of this, all right? I'm just reacting to what's going on in the world.
Talking a little bit about your teaching career, how long have you been an educator?
I've been teaching for 32 years. This was my 32nd year.
Wow. That's an amazingly long career. My wife is a teacher. I know it's an incredible job. It's a difficult job, and more than 3 decades is a long time to be doing it. Now, we're talking today because you were recently put on leave, and we're going to get into all the reasons why and the intricacies of this, but take us through the events that led up to this.
Well, it was a regular day. I'm sitting on my desk at lunch and opening my email, and I get a text from an email from my supervisor asking me to come and see him and bring union rep for a meeting regarding my cross. So that was shocking in itself. I didn't know what to expect.
So they asked you to come. Now, you had this crucifix in your workspace. Describe where it was in your workspace for us.
Well, when I come into the room and I sit down, it was right to my right side, so that I could turn my face and look at it and see it there. It was right there, parallel to.
I'm sorry. She seems like such a sweet older lady. To be honest, she reminds me of my DT, man.
To where I'm sitting on the wall.
And so people understand you had it on the wall there. Just so everyone understands, why did you have it there? What was the significance of that for you?
I had it there because it was important to me. I had, growing up, my grandmother made a big fuss about crosses and the Bible and how holy they were and how you needed to have them wherever you are. And I didn't even think anything of it. I just always had it. Like, it was my comfort zone. It was my place to be. It was just there. It was like routine. Like, if somebody asks you, why do you have your hand there? Because I do.
Right. Exactly, because it's important.
Yeah.
So I'm going to... Well, Keisha, I want to come to you in a moment on the legalities of this. But Marisol, this obviously had been, from what I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, in your space for a number of years. Had there been any other issue before this December 6th text message? Was there a history of problems with this crucifix? Were you told to take it down before? Take us through some of that.
Never at all. I always had it there since I was like teaching 4th grade, 3rd, 6th, 7th. Kids will come up to me, ask me about it. I would tell them that's my cross. Why is Jesus on it? Because he was crucified. Questions that kids would ask. I moved it every time I moved rooms. It was not really anything. I thought it was common. I thought it was normal to have it.
Well, in these...
Another thing I'll say too is, I grew up in Newington, which is a town next to New Britain, but New Britain is the district my mama worked in. There's a lot of Puerto Rican people, Spanish speaking people, a lot of black people too, but obviously a lot of white people, you know what I'm saying, descendants of immigrants, a lot of Hispanics, a lot of Puerto Ricans in New Britain, and a lot of Hispanic people tend to be Catholic. I don't know for sure, but I would deduce that this woman is a Roman Catholic because in reports that I've seen, she had a crucifix and a church calendar. So that would suggest to me that she's Roman Catholic because most Hispanic people, Latino people are Roman Catholic as opposed to some of the other ancient assemblies and things of that nature. So it is kind of interesting that you would think, yeah, that this became such a problem when most of the people in the community probably already had this belief system. You see what I'm saying? But we're going to get more into the intricacies of where we draw the line in an academic setting.
Spaces, Keisha, I'll come to you. In these spaces, these desk areas for teachers, are people allowed to have other displays? What sort of other displays do teachers have in these spaces?
So we have people who celebrate the sporting team that they like, the sports team they like. There's Baby Yoda. There's all kinds of things. What you would expect a teacher to have in their personal desk space. Pictures of family, etc. Yeah. And that means that space is that teacher's private expression. So the district cannot censor it. And in this case, if they're allowing all the other teachers to put secular things in their workspaces, then they can't ban Marisol's crucifix. That is a violation of the free speech clause. And that's just the first constitutional provision that the school district is breaking, because there are several other laws that they're breaking here.
Well, what was your, Keisha, when you first heard about this case at First Liberty, what was your reaction to the details as you understood them?
Well, I was outraged because, and it's just very frustrating because First Liberty has been doing this work a very long time. And we just spent 9 years fighting for Coach Joseph Kennedy in Bremerton School District, Supreme Court win. And you would think that because that case was so big that people would understand that the government doesn't own you just because you work for them. And in this situation, I think these facts are even easier than what was going on with Coach Kennedy. So I don't understand really why the district feels the need to bully this teacher and try and get her to take down a crucifix when she has every right to have it on that wall.
I think this is interesting from a legal perspective is when teachers are allowed to have personal expression within their own domain, by the same standard, you can't get mad at something religious represented without having a hypocritical standard. You see what I'm saying? Like, if you're allowing pride flags and things of that nature to be in a teacher's personal space, then you can't get mad when they have a cross, because that's just inconsistent. Now, what I will say, the problem is academically, if she would be teaching people the doctrine of Christ. Because even though as her younger brother in Christ, I would fundamentally support that, from a spiritual perspective, academically, that's where it would be drawing the line. That's where it would be drawing the line if you're using a secular institution to actually actively teach people the doctrine of Christ from a legal perspective. But if you're not teaching doctrine, then just having a representation of your faith, of your identity, cannot be taken and removed in and of itself. Because again, if you're not teaching doctrine, there's no difference between having a cross that represents your faith to an LGBTQ flag that represents your identity. Here's something I wanted to show because this district has some other interesting stuff as well. All right, so y'all. So here's the let me sit up straight now. Look, here's the article I wanted to read with y'all from the Connecticut Sentinel. New Britain School District thinks it's okay to celebrate Pride Month, but not okay for a teacher to have crucifix behind desk. This is what I wanted to talk to you about because I want to do my own research into the district to see if they had a specific policy about LGBTQ flags in classrooms. I couldn't find nothing. So this is probably the next best thing I have is that, well, I couldn't find a specific policy about sexuality, representing sexuality in the classroom. I found stuff about a general position from the district regarding sexuality. Marisol Arroyo-Castro, a 32-year-old veteran teacher in CT schools who happens to be Catholic, was told in December to remove the religious symbol from her workspace at Dillarado Elementary and Middle School, or else she would be disciplined for insubordination. First Liberty, which is the law case that took up this firm, pointed out in the letter that Castro was not the only teacher to have personal items, including religious ones, at her workplace in the school. Castro was allegedly told she could hang the crucifix in a less visible spot under her desk, a shocking idea that upset Castro, so she refused to comply and was eventually suspended for 2 days for insubordination. So as the story goes, they initially told her she had to move her crucifix, which she did initially, but she felt so guilty about it that she actually put it back a little bit later, and that's where the problem came in. That's where the confrontation sort of came in when she put her cross back up in a visible spot. According to Fox News, Castro was subsequently put in a paid leave after she told the district that she could not, in good conscience, hang her crucifix under her desk, which I respect too. The Bible is very clear about following your convictions. That just came into my head just now in terms of Romans 14. I believe a passage in James talks about that. The importance of actually following your convictions when you know what's right to do so. Respect to my elder sister for having the cojones to put it back. And you could have a problem, but again, the whole thing I'm trying to show was the legality. I don't think, in as much as you can establish that it's not teaching doctrine, having a cross cannot be condemned without being hypocritical, because as we'll see, that in June, for the 4th year in a row, the BOE of New Britain unanimously adopted a Pride resolution. A Pride flag was also raised at the high school. Now, this is a very good point from the Connecticut Sentinel. The Pride resolution effectively allowed the Board of Education and the Consolidated School District of New Britain to impose personal religious beliefs onto the entire school community, signaling to devout Catholics and Muslims, for instance, that their religious views are not respected or valued by the district. Here is where I want to bring it, because we know that those who cling to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob don't really get down with all of the LGBTQ stuff. We have various things in the Torah, various things reflected in the New Testament or the Messianic writings. So for the school district to actually take an affirmative position means that they, as a natural consequence, are alienating the religious community, which again makes up the majority of the belief system there in that town, in those apartments, in those projects and things. Most people are followers of Christ. Now you can get into this thing that some people may not be as strict. It's true when you're dealing with a lot of young kids. We're dealing with young kids that probably don't really know a lot about that stuff to begin with, right? But you're going to have people within those families, connected to those families of those children, who are devout and who believe the Bible enough to actually have a sort of stigma against an LGBTQ lifestyle. It is what it is. So this makes a great point, because this shows the district is willing to make official positions that alienate religious people, that alienate people beyond just Christians, right? Beyond just Christians, that alienate their religious beliefs based on the secular position of the district. So if the district is comfortable enough to make those positions, which is their prerogative, then you can't get mad at someone displaying a cross within that institution, because if you're going to defend yourself and say you're not imposing an LGBTQ identity kind of thing on your community, if you're going to make that argument, then you can't in the same breath say, dear Marisol is doing the same thing by just merely displaying a cross, which is a symbol of her personal faith in Christ. Here's the last thing I want to cover. New Britain Superintendent Dr. Tony Gasper issued a statement in response to First Liberty's letter that argued that the crucifix had been prominently displayed on the front wall of Castro's public school classroom, which violates both federal and state laws requiring public schools to remain neutral in religious matters. So, I disagree. Well, just taking a cross and saying that that's being unneutral is unfair, because if you're taking the mere presence of an object of my belief system that I reflect in my classroom and take that as a pushing that on other people, you have to apply the same logic to pushing on the LGBTQ affirmations on the rest of the district, on the rest of the children in those families. You see what I'm saying? You can't take something that you personally believe that's in your own personal space and interpret it as not being neutral in religious matters. Because again, if there's no teaching of doctrine, then there's no difference from having a cross representing your faith in the crucified Messiah from having an LGBTQ flag. And I'm going to that point because this is something that the district um, easily affirms. Now, here's where things get interesting because Gasper, who's the superintendent, argued and alleged, I'm skipping down, that the teacher had been incorporating her personal religious beliefs into her instruction. We will not allow any teacher to use their position of authority to impose their personal religious beliefs or infringe on the civil rights of our students. So, this is where I gotta be fair because if she is actually teaching people the doctrine of Christ, that's where you would have a legal argument against her doing what she's doing. That's where you have a legitimate argument of indoctrination because literally teaching doctrine. Now I'll say from a spiritual perspective, I would probably fundamentally agree if she's teaching people the doctrine of Christ and telling people the true doctrine of who Christ really is and everything like that. From her perspective, fundamentally, on a spiritual philosophical level, you don't get nothing better than that. But from a legal, secular, academic perspective, where you do have people with different beliefs, that is where you would have a legitimate argument where you could say she honestly overstepped the line. If you can honestly say that she's actually teaching people doctrine in religious beliefs. But the thing is, I don't know how true that is. It could just be telling people simply about what Jesus or what he went through that's being interpreted as incorporating her religious beliefs. It could be as simple as a teacher maybe saying a prayer, saying something nice about just making a quick comment about her faith and then moving on to the academic lesson. See, I don't know the extent of what's being interpreted as incorporating her personal religious beliefs because what it makes it sound like is she's incorporating her beliefs into the academic lessons, like she's as if she's trying to make a direct link between Christ and whatever math or whatever she's teaching the kids. That's what it makes it sound like. But a one-off statement or just explaining the historical crucifixion of Jesus, I don't know what's going on that he's interpreting as her incorporating her beliefs into her education. Another thing that's kind of suspicious is that she's been a veteran teacher for 30 plus years. So the fact that this is really the first major incident in light of a whole history, that is a little suspicious. That would suggest to me that there's a little bit something else going on rather than just direct indoctrination. Because if it was just direct indoctrination in an academic setting, you would expect there to be some type of rapport, some type of confrontation of this magnitude in the time prior. If there's any of that in the files that I missed, I invite y'all to let me know. But that's what I want to say. As it stands, I stand with my sister in Christ. I think she did the right thing. I don't think they really have any right to get mad with the cross itself without being hypocritical because, again, apart from teaching doctrine, representing a cross is just representing people's faith in as much as representing God's name in Hebrew would be representing your faith. There's different ways to represent your faith because obviously maybe you're trying to reflect the name of God or what the Messiah suffered on the cross, whatever perspective you're coming at it from. If you don't go beyond that, there's no difference between having that intimate part of your identity from having a sports team represented, Dallas Cowboys, my daddy team, or you know what I'm saying, what have you, or LGBTQ flags. There's so many parallels we could do that there's a double standard when it comes to religious matters that seems to be very clear from the available evidence in the district. But with that being said, the one caveat I will give, to be fair, is if she's actively teaching the doctrine of Christ, actively teaching biblical doctrines, as much as I may agree with that philosophically, that's where it would be crossing the line, so to speak, from a legal perspective. But again, I don't know how true that is. So I will wait for more evidence to come out. But fundamentally, I stand with my sister, and I think she's being wronged for this with regards to the specific matter of the crucifix. I can't speak to her teaching style and her history of that. We got to wait for the evidence on that. But as far as the crucifix itself, the whole problem with displaying the cross, I think in and of itself is definitely overblown. And, you know, this is an aside, but I think it also, well, it kind of shows a disconnect from the community, in my opinion. But I also understand they're operating from a secular set of rules and guidelines. But here's the thing I want to telegraph. This is such a crazy thing because my mom was telling me this story just because it was, regarding our old stomping grounds. But this actually went viral because on the CBN News Network, this has 88,000 views as of a week ago. So now 88,000 people, potentially 88,000 Christians around the country are hearing about this thing that's going on in my mama's old school district. It's crazy. So let me know what y'all think in the comments. I love, you know what I'm saying? I love to talk about this stuff. I love to hear what y'all guys think based on what you may fundamentally think is right, but comparing that with the legality of things, because we do live in a secular country with secular laws and things of that nature. So let me know what y'all think. Y'all be blessed in the Messiah, and I see you in the next video, all right? Pray that the Lord's Spirit will lead the situation, that ultimately God may be exalted. All right, God bless, peace, shalom, and I see you in the next one. Peace.